Hi everyone, so today I wanted to talk about being on deck 4 of a cruise ship. Like many people, going on a cruise is one of my favourite ways of seeing many different places in a short period of time. However, an important part of going on a cruise is cruise ship living, and in turn an important consideration is which deck you are on. So recently I was on the P&O Arvia on a 2-week cruise in the Caribbean, during which time I had an inside cabin on deck 4. So P&O Arvia has 19 decks in total, so at face value, deck 4 is quite a long way down. And for context, deck 3 is a deck that you would get off during a port day. On previous cruises, I've been on much higher decks such as 11, 12 and 14. Naturally, prior to this cruise, I had a lot of questions and curiosities about what it would be like to be on such a low deck. How would I feel with the sway of the ship? Would it be noisy? Would I have to take 11 stairs just to get to breakfast because there was no lifts available? Many people assume that the lower the deck on a cruise ship, the worse it is. But is that exactly true? I hope to share my perspective having just stayed on deck 4 of the cruise ship. Okay, so on to the positives of being on deck 4. So I would say that the main positive is its convenience during a port day. So during the whole cruise, one of the main wait times was for lifts going down when the ship is docked at port. Why? Well, this is because most people are wanting to get off the ship at similar times. That means that all the lifts are either full or stopping at every floor. Remember that deck 4 is just one deck above the deck 3, that you would get off during the port day, and as such, sort of trying to get off would just take a couple minutes. It's just sort of walk down. And at the same time, or kind of linked to that, is when reboarding the ship. So after a long day out, especially in the Caribbean where we went, you're hot, you're bothered, you're quite hungry, and all you want to do is sort of get refreshed and have something to eat. So rather than waiting in the long queues for the elevators, it's just a flight of stairs up and you're at your door, you're at your cabin, you can get refreshed and get something to eat. So that's definitely one of the positives of being on deck 4. So I would say a second positive of being on deck 4 is its close proximity to a lot of the entertainment on the ship during the sea days and during the evenings, and this includes everything from sort of places to eat, the Ocean Studio cinemas, the library, the dance workshops, which mostly take place on deck 6, deck 7 and sometimes deck 8. So from deck 4 these are quite accessible from walking, versus sort of coming from deck 15 and 14. What I would also say is, for me particularly on the Arvia and Iona, is the proximity to the gym as well, which is quite spacious and it's on deck 5, so again incredibly accessible for me. So that was another positive about being on deck 4. Okay, so on to the negatives. So I would say that the most obvious significant negative is the distance you have between you and the entertainment on the top decks. So it is a lot of decks from 4 to 16, 17, 18 and 19. And that's where you would find the whirlpools, the infinity pools, the main deck pools, the Skydome performances, the buffet for breakfast. So there's a lot sort of going on at the top which you could want to and probably will want to access during the day on a cruise ship, particularly on a sea day. And yes, taking the stairs is an option, but it's not always practical, so you'll have to take the lifts. So whilst that is an apparent negative, for me, I don't know whether it was just because I was at the front of the ship, but it was never too much of a problem. The Arvia had a lot more lifts available than on other cruise ships. I think there was 8 at the front, 8 in the middle, and maybe 8 at the back as well. So I never really had a problem waiting and getting a lift up to the top. It was more, as I said previously on one of the positives, getting the lift coming down for the port day. Also, what I would mention, on Arvia and Iona, they have a large deck space on their promenade on deck 8, so that's very accessible by walking from deck 4, and there's a lot of space for deck chairs for laying out in the sun, and also whirlpools. It's also a quieter area, particularly if you don't want to be near the noise of deck 16 or deck 17. Finally, another clear negative of being on deck 4 is there's no balconies. So if you are one to like going on cruise ships, to have a balcony to be able to see the sea every morning that you wake up and feel the breeze and listen to the birds and watch the port, then obviously deck 4 is not the one for you. You can get ocean view sort of windows looking out from deck 4, but to me personally I don't think I would want that, considering sometimes when going through rough seas such as the Bay of Biscay, you can get water coming right over the window, and that's not something I would want. Overall, I would say that being on deck 4 was probably one of the best decks I've been on, simply because for me it's quite important to be off the ship and get back on the ship quite quickly, and that allowed that. In terms of the disadvantage of being far away from things, I think if you're higher up on the deck, yeah, you're closer to the top deck, but you're further away from the entertainment on the lower decks, and vice versa. And I think that the main problem with getting anywhere on the ship is getting down, especially on a port day.